Coming up today on the show, the throwbacks are finally here. The Seahawks unveil their classic era throwback uniforms to be worn week 8, and they did it in epic fashion. It was awesome. Might I even say it was rad. I'll break down the announcement, how that went down, the changes that I can see, my thoughts on the whole thing. Up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Welcome back to the show, loyal listeners, or if it's your first time, welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. I am Dan Viens. First things first, whether you're new or old, hit that like button. Subscribe to the audio podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And most importantly, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where the most growth has been. That's where the focus will be. That is where the support has been. And that's your best way to keep up on things, as we are now just precisely 1 week away from the start of training camp for the 2023 Seattle Seahawks. It is Throwback Day. We've known about this for a while. We've really known about this for the last couple of years, ever since the NFL changed their safety rule, allowing teams to have a separate helmet. If you've asked yourself, why have other teams done throwbacks and the Seahawks haven't until this point? It's because other teams can do throwbacks by simply taking the decals off of their helmets, somehow changing their existing helmet. The league was concerned that if players had different helmets, that it would be harder for them to keep up on the safety protocols and standards. But they've updated that, and the Seahawks went to their classic era throwbacks. So first things first, these are the uniforms that were in place from 1983 until 2001. In fact, let me do this just to remind you. Throw this up on the screen for those of you watching. See, when you watch the YouTube channel, this is the kind of stuff you get. So this is left side of the screen, Jim Zorn. You got Zorn Largent here, right? Left side of the screen, 1976 to 1983. And then you can see the change in 83. First of all, I love, man, talk about throwback. They weren't going to do this, of course. But the mesh, right? That wide mesh that Largent's wearing. Similar to what I'm wearing now. So I don't have any jerseys or even hats in the colors from this era yet. Of course I'll get that. I've been putting off for years buying a Zorn Largent or a Zorn jersey. This will obviously be the year. And then the giant numbers on Largent's jersey. I love that. But you can see the initial uniforms, the number was on the sleeve, and then you just had the plain stripes around the sleeve, nothing on the neck at all, and a gray face mask. So those were the changes in 83. They dropped, they added the logo to the stripe on the sleeve, and then they went with the number up on the shoulder, and then, excuse me. And then colors on the neck and the blue face mask for a little bit of contrast. So love that. Absolutely love that. And then let's do this too. Let's put this up because this is the big reveal. Kind of doing this live here. There we go. So that's what it looks like today. Get this banner out of the way. You can see there, we got Quandre Diggs on the left, Metcalf in the middle, Bobby Wagner over there on the right. Obviously, we knew that the modern style was going to come into play, right? But there are a couple other little things I notice that I'm going to talk about in a minute first. So that's in case this is the first place you're getting it, that's what they look like. And we'll get into that a little bit more in a second. How it went down, though. This was absolutely nailed by the Seahawks today, I thought. So much anticipation. Everybody was waiting for today. And your boy Dan was waiting for two things. You talk about the 90s era. Big rock fan, big classic rock fan, hard rock fan, big Creed fan. You can see the stuff on my wall back here. That red guitar right there is actually a Mark Tremonti Signature Edition PRS signed by Mark Tremonti. And then there's posters back there signed by his solo band, Alter Bridge, which kind of Creed turned into once Scott Stapp was kicked out of the band. The band hasn't toured in a long time. They announced today, and they had teased this as well, that they're getting back together. They announced a cruise, and then there's a whole summer tour that's being booked as we speak. And they're billing it as the summer of '99 because the 25th anniversary of their album Human Clay, the one with Higher and Arms Wide Open on it. Anyway, so at the same time, on the same day that they announced the summer of '99 concept, the Seahawks come out and unveil these uniforms, which they wore all throughout the entire decade of the 90s. But the way that this went down was exceptional. So they released a video on social media. And then that video had a link, took you to the website where all the pictures were. And of course, they have all their merch ready to sell. In that video, if you haven't seen it, watch it. Go to Twitter. I can't share it. I don't want another copyright strike. I wish I could. But there were so many cool, retro, classic references. And I'm just, this tip of the iceberg here, right? The video shows Jackson Smith and Jigba thought it was cool that they involved one of the new guys waking up in his bedroom in the morning. And the camera kind of scans through his bedroom, and you see all the walls covered in posters, classic era posters. There was a picture of Dave Craig on the wall, Gary Payton, even little shout out to the Sonics. His alarm goes off. It's an old school clock radio playing old school music, of course. Sitting next to it, there's a lava lamp. There's a disc man. Pans over, shows he has two computers in his room. One's a PC, and one looks like one of the early Macintoshes. There's a Kingdom sign, and then he's covered up fully under his comforter, which is an old school Seahawks comforter, and he pulls the covers off, and he's in full uniform. He gets up, he walks into a very dated kitchen with the shaker style, natural veneer wood cabinets, white appliances, no stainless steel anywhere. Takes a bite of breakfast, walks through a garage. There's a band warming up and playing. And then he walks out. He goes to work. He walks into Lumen Field. Extremely cool. Then there's a link. It gets even better. There's a link to the Seahawks website. And there's a start button. And you immediately recognize that the graphics there are old school graphics. And then you hit the start button and you hear it. You hear the old dial-up modem sound, which I thought when it first came on, I thought, this is cool. There was a split second of nostalgia, and then it was kind of like PTSD, like nails on a chalkboard. Like, I can't believe we had to live with that sound every day of our lives there for a couple of years before, before high-speed internet came along, cable internet, fiber optics, Wi-Fi. Extremely cool. Then it takes you to the website where they're selling jerseys and showing everything off, all the pictures that the guys took. And they really went, a lot of guys are represented there. I did not see a customizable option. I would hope that at some point there would be. But here's what I do like. Let me throw another graphic up here for you. The uniforms look slightly new and improved. They didn't just go with the old colors and the old uniform scheme, but in the modern tight-fitting mode, right? No leg pads anymore. All the guys are wearing the visors. Obviously the new modern helmet looks a lot cooler. But let me share that again. Let me do this again. So I mentioned on the show the other day with Bill and Keith, and apologies, by the way, for the audio issues there. Bill's audio was a little lower than the rest of us. In my earpiece, live, it didn't sound that bad. And when I upload the audio version to Spotify, Apple, Podbean, Amazon, wherever you get it, I run it through some compression and some post-production that evens out the levels, kind of brings up the lows, knocks down the highs a little bit. And so if you missed something on the YouTube version, I can't do that. I can't process that audio. I could match the two up and replace the YouTube or the audio that I record when I'm videotaping the show, but that's a long process. So if there's anything you missed or you want to hear it again, because those guys always have some great insight, just check out the audio version. It'll be a little bit better. But I mentioned that the one guy we talked about who kind of comes to mind that's sort of under the radar from that era, not the obvious guys, Soren Largent, Craig. And for me, for whatever reason, it's John Kitna. And so I got a split screen here with John Kitna on the left and Quandre Diggs on the right. And you can see they really stayed true to form. They had to shrink the graphic on the shoulder a little bit because guys wear the sleeve higher, right? But that just kind of streamlines it. I think makes it look cooler, accentuates the shoulder a little bit. The neck is different, that fly. I can't remember what they call that technology now. But I notice, and this isn't the only picture. Now, we're talking natural light versus studio lighting here, right? But in all the other pictures I look at too, it looks like even the color itself is a little bit brighter. It's a little cleaner. It pops a little bit more. When I looked up the official color codes, the hex codes for their throwback uniforms, it didn't really look anything like what we're seeing now. So it looks like they sort of brightened it just a touch. And then I had one other picture here too that I thought was kind of cool. Even the jerseys that you could buy last year, the throwbacks, they've improved those. So on the right side of the screen here is the Steve Largent jersey, the Legends jersey, as they call it, that you could have bought for the last 5 or 6 years. And then the new one on the left. And again, you can see that older kind of royal blue or whatever you want to call that is a little more flushed out and faded. The newer one, it just looks a little more bold. It just pops more. Look, I like everything about it. I think they nailed it. As I said, they captured the throwback feel. They stayed true to the uniform design, but the modern take on it, how it looks on the modern athlete. Like, I don't even think the pictures of DK Metcalf wearing this uniform do it justice to what it's going to look like when we see that dude 6'4" walk onto the field in those uniforms for the first time. Here's the other thing I like, and I really kudos to the Seahawks for this. And I don't know if this is a league-wide thing. It'll be interesting to check the other websites, but typically it is. So maybe I'm giving kudos to the Seahawks. Maybe it's the NFL as a whole. These jerseys, and there's two different forms of jerseys, right? There's the replica, which I showed on the graphic there. Those are $129.99. For $50 more, you get the limited, the Vapor model, which really, to me, the only difference is the neck. They don't even give you the sewn-on numbers anymore, which I don't like. I think it's too heavy. It's too bulky. I've bought just the replica jerseys for years. The last sewn-on letter jersey I bought was a Doug Baldwin, and I hardly ever wear it. It's just too bulky. I'm not playing in a game. I want to be comfortable. The most comfortable Seahawks jersey I have is my action green Cam Chancellor, because it's just made out of a different fabric. You know, you can actually wear it around the house. It's not, you don't feel like you're suiting up for a game. But that's the exact same price that they charged for their jerseys last year. And this could have been a money grab, because, man, they're going to sell a lot of merch. You're going to see so many of these jerseys well in advance of week 8. I think you're going to see them in the opener against the Rams. And they could have easily made this a money grab. They could have charged $150, $160 for the replica jerseys, and they would still sell a ton of them. But that, frankly, I'm in that group that price point might have turned me off to the point that I wouldn't have gotten one. I'm still not sure who I'm going to get, who I'm going to start off with. Like I said, I don't have any Legends jerseys. This is as close as I could get if you're watching the YouTube channel, with the 2001 to 2012 version, which we all agree, well, maybe other than the 76 to 83 jerseys, those are kind of lame. Thought these were cool when they first came out. They just, in retrospect, in history, they were just bland, right? Really blah. And there's already people, the reaction overwhelmingly has been positive this morning. There's already people calling for them to just switch to this uniform full time. It will be interesting as we move forward to see how they handle this. And here's why. You're only allowed to wear your any alternate jersey 3 times in a season. That can be the color rush, the wolf gray, or now the throwback. They've typically in the last couple seasons dropped that color rush down to just 1 game, usually a primetime game. And then the wolf gray, look, I have a couple wolf gray jerseys. I know a lot of you guys really love them. I've never been a huge fan. I just don't see the point there. It's such a light gray that I just don't see the point. So I wonder if maybe that one will be phased out and they still pick a color rush or an action green day throughout the year. I know that one's more polarizing, but enough people love it. And the players have said that they love it, that I think that one might stick around. Maybe we get 2 throwbacks a year, or maybe they just leave it at 1 to make it more special. I will say this. Someone suggested this morning that why are they doing this week 8 against the Browns? Wouldn't say the Thanksgiving game have been better. Home game against your arch rival 49ers late in the season on Thanksgiving Day, national TV. It's a valid point. I wonder if that's just too late. And they were trying to find something a little bit earlier. I don't know. But that's my take on that. And never before has I've pointed out some of my background today. The classic Wheaties box, unopened Wheaties box. Can't even imagine what those Wheaties are like inside there. That a coworker brought in for me a couple years ago. He had bought it at a garage sale. Had been sitting around with Steve Largent on the cover there in that uniform. Never has that been more apropos or fitting. Hit me in the comments. What do you think of the uniforms? Who are you going to buy? Who do you think I should buy? Maybe predict that. How do you feel about where it fits in with the rest of their uniforms? Would you be in favor of going to these full time, wearing them a couple times a year, phasing out the action green, getting rid of the wolf gray? Tell me what you think down in the comments. And you know what? There we go. We just did 18 minutes talking about uniforms. But it's fun. People are into this stuff. You can laugh at it all you want. People are into this. Coming up later this week, Clinton Bonner is joining me tomorrow. If you're watching this the day it's recorded, the co-host of the Seahawkers pod with our old friend Brandon Schultz. We've been going back and forth, really been looking forward to getting together. Cool story about something nostalgic that he sent me last week that I really appreciate. So we'll talk about that and we'll get ready for Seahawks training camp as, again, we are now just 7 days away from the start of camp. So look for more shows. Hit that subscribe button and you'll never miss out on new episodes. I am Dan Viennes. This is Seahawks Forever. Forever and always. Go Hawks.